bull crap, instead of the whole, like, be a man, like he did. And then I think, like, the little things also, irked her. Like, it's like when Vrabel did the whole be a man thing with me, it didn't bother me at all. In fact, I sat there when he said it, and I had a smile, because if you hear in the cut, he's like, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, I was like, just think the opposite, like the Sally rule. But I knew in my head, I was like, this is so good for the radio show that Vrabel's going off on me. But Caroline said to me, she was like, yeah, she goes, I don't like that whole be a man thing. And then I thought about it. The owner's a woman. Like, how would that make it? I just think that Vrabel pissed her off. The comments that he would make about Rand, the passive aggressive, yeah, sure, I want to be here, but I want to do this with Rand and Chad and A-Rob. And I just think that he pissed her off. That had Mike Vrabel had better communication skills, or was just a little bit more humble, and went to the owner after they lost and said things like, yeah, we just have got to really dig in this offseason, and I've got to really look in the mirror at my coaching staff, and I promise you I didn't mean anything about the New England comments, and I promise you that I didn't mean anything towards Rand when I said that I didn't tell Ian Rappaport Will Levis was starting, and I promise all of that, and, I'm going to do what it takes for us to – I may still have a job. That I don't think it's like one of the reasons you guys would have fired him. I don't think that's why she fired him. You guys didn't like Todd Downing, but he ultimately fired Todd Downing, I think, when she made him. He ultimately fired Craig Aukerman when she made him. And so I don't think that's why she fired him. I think she fired him because he pissed her off. And that's just my gut on this. And again, that's not why I would have fired him. Like, I would not have fired Vrabel because Vrabel and I got into it about Aukerman, or Vrabel and I got into it about the New England comments, or Vrabel and I got into it about the assistant coaches. Like, I don't care about any of that. I would have fired him because I think the whole operation just needed to be uprooted and start from scratch. Kind of like Washington, right? Washington, they were so bad, and the owner sold the team, and Ron Rivera's out there trying, but who knows, just blow it all up. New GM, new coach, everything. That's how I felt. But I don't think that's what she would, like, clearly she didn't feel that way because she didn't blow anything else up. Same GM, they promoted Chad Brinker, they more empowered the people that were already here. But that's just what my gut says. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says, stop talking about old news. Nobody cares about Mike Vrabel. Buddy, I'm looking at the text line right now. We spent the entire first hour talking about the offseason, Tavondre Sweat, the safety position after Marcus May signed with the Dolphins, and we've spent the last 25 minutes talking about Mike Vrabel. Guess which one blew up the text line? Again, to the point of nobody cares. Guess what blew up the text line more? Vrabel. There's something about Vrabel, and I don't know what it is. And this is why I'm disappointed he didn't get a job this year, because if he got a job this year, if he was the coach of the Chargers, if he was the coach of the Falcons, if he was the coach of one of these teams, we'd be keeping up with them too. Because imagine if Vrabel went to the Falcons and they won, how a lot of people would feel. It's like Brady leaving the Patriots and going to the Buccaneers. They kept up with what Brady was doing in Boston. And I don't understand what makes Vrabel so special, because the fans didn't care about Mike Mularkey once he got fired. The fans didn't care about Peter Laviolette with the Predators when he got fired. The fans don't really care about David Poyle or John Hines right now anymore either. And yet, the fans here care about John Robinson and Mike Vrabel. The fans don't care about Tannehill. I mean, we talked about Tannehill every single day for 5 years. Tannehill's contract expires. The new league year opens. I mean, the amount of talk we did about Vrabel not getting another job, and the Titan fans are like, Do we ever hear that about Tannehill, who doesn't have another job? Which I, by the way, am shocked by. Because I do think Tannehill's still got some game in him. But we have not, we've had it on the grid a couple of times. You know, when something's come up about Tannehill, like there was a rumor that Chicago might sign him to back up Caleb Williams, and I put it on the grid, but then something else came up, so we talked about something else. When Will Levis was asked about Tannehill, and Levis was like, yeah, man, I mean, I don't know why Tannehill doesn't have a job. Tannehill's good. And I put that on the grid like, yeah, why doesn't Tannehill have a job? And yet something else came up, and I'm telling you, you guys don't care about Tannehill. You guys don't even really care about Derrick Henry with the Ravens. It's like, yeah, it had to end. Great times for Derrick. Hope he does well. Love Derrick. You guys don't really have any animosity there. But when it comes to Vrabel, you guys care. And I can't tell you why. But you guys do. Speaking of all those phones about Vrabel, we'll get to them next. 615-737-1025 here on the program, here on Stillman and Company. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan today as the Sounds take on the Gwinnett Stripers on the road. I actually was wondering this the other day. I was like, when does Gwinnett come here to play the Sounds? Because, you know, I'm a Braves fan, and so I'd like to go out there, see them when they take on Gwinnett. Unfortunately, this is on the road. But the game starts at 6:05 on 94.9 The Fan. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Okay, your thoughts on Vrabel?
I was shocked. I mean, that, and they bring in Brian, Callahan from the Bengals, who didn't even call his plays there with Zach Taylor. I thought that was a horrific decision by the ownership of Nashville. I made no sense. Now, I know Vrabel didn't get another job, so that makes them look good that he wasn't gobbled up by somebody else.
Sure.
But Vrabel's a hell of a coach. Does a good job. He doesn't really have that well-known quarterback yet. We don't know about Levis. He looks like he might be good, but you can't. He had the one great game against Miami. You can't swear on that right now. We were all surprised. No, we weren't shocked because we think we maybe saw this coming. They did let A.J. Brown go a couple years ago. Maybe Vrabel wasn't on that page to do that. But, yes, most football people were surprised that Vrabel was let go. And most football people think, not that I talked to him, but this is just me listening, most people think that Vrabel got a raw deal.
Okay, there you go. That was Mad Dog talking about Vrabel at the Super Bowl. Now, I am going to get to your phones on this. Ian, I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
Oh, boy.
I said to you during the break, because I'm looking at the text line just overflowing with Vrabel text messages. Okay. Just like, and I said to you, I go, why do people care about Vrabel? They did not care about Mularkey. The second Mularkey left, and I don't know about you, Ian, I thought Mularkey was a good coach.
I think he did a solid job, yeah, considering where they were.
I mean, he took the worst team in the league, and within 2 years, they beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. Like, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So, but nobody cared. Like, the second Mularkey got fired, it was like, all right, he's out. Let's get on to the next.
Everyone knew Mularkey was not a long-term situation. Mularkey was a short-term deal, and so, yeah. I mean, he had a ceiling.
What about Laviolette?
What about him?
He got fired. Nobody cared. He got fired.
What do you mean nobody cared? I don't know about nobody cared.
It was not controversial when they fired Peter Laviolette.
Well, they were running out of options, and the team was, kind of struggling. They had peaked, and they had kind of started to valley back down, and there was nothing they could do with the roster, and so people were looking for answers, and hockey is a fire-the-coach league.
So I said to you, I go, why do these people care so much about Mike Vrabel? What'd you say?
Because he's a good coach?
Because he's a good coach. See, that's the thing. That's why. Because I think it's two things. Number one, I think deep down inside, everybody knows Vrabel is a good coach, even if Vrabel did a lot of things that pissed us off.
Not perfect, sure.
And, I would have fired him. I think he is a good coach, and I would have fired him. I think I've made that abundantly clear. There's this one guy in the text line that just every time I say Vrabel was a good coach, I know the first 3 digits of his phone number because it pops up so often. Every time I say that, this guy blows up the text line and is like, stop saying Vrabel was a good coach. Vrabel was not a good coach. Oh my God. Guy gets triggered every time. I think that deep down inside, everybody knows Vrabel's a good coach. And again, I would have fired him. I'm the kind of guy who I can fire Mike Vrabel, put in Brian Callahan. I think Brian Callahan is what this team needs, the guru coach. And it's not like you can just go get Sean McVay. So I think this is what this team needs, whether it was him or Bobby Slowick or, again, one of the gurus. That's what I think this team needed over Vrabel. I'm okay with it, even though Brian Callahan's never called a play and never coached a game in his life. I'm okay with that. If it doesn't work out with Callahan, I'm not going to look back and say, oh, my God, they fired Vrabel. What a disaster. I'm not going to do that. I think you guys will. I do think that if it doesn't work with Callahan, whereas I'm like, hey, you made the move. You had to do what all the info around the league is telling us is that the guru coordinators, Kevin O'Connell and Zach Taylor and Matt LaFleur, and these guys are all winning. So go get you with a young quarterback. Go get a guru coach and put him in here and have success. And yet that doesn't change the fact that Vrabel was a good coach. And that doesn't change. Vrabel's going to go somewhere else, and Vrabel's going to win. I think he's going to go to Dallas or Philly or Buffalo or one of those places that already has a quarterback in place, Jacksonville, and Vrabel's going to win some games. And I won't be surprised by that. But I think the second reason why I think everybody still cares about Vrabel is because I think Titan fans were really angry with kind of this finger wagging of the, Mike Vrabel's better than the organization kind of thing. It's like, you guys are lucky to have Mike Vrabel as your coach. It's like, really? We're lucky to have a guy that's like, oh no, Todd Downing, he's the answer. Screw off. And I think there's some of that too. One texter says, surely Vrabel's firing had more to do with his coaching hires than it did with him pissing people off, right? Some of the worst assistant coaches in the league. Yes, but
I didn't really like some of his coaching hires either, especially I was over
terrible.
the Bowen situation. I guess he got lucky maybe with Arthur Smith, but Bowen and Downing were not good.
So I think if I had owned the team, I would have demanded Shane Bowen be fired after last year too. Like, if I'd owned the team and I was going to keep Vrabel, if I'd owned the team, I'd have blown everything up after last year. But I think if I was going to keep Vrabel, I would have demanded that Bowen go. I don't think Bowen's a very good defensive coordinator. I don't think he's horrible, but I don't think he's very good. I mean, like when the Giants hired him, I texted a producer of mine at Sirius that's a huge Giants fan, and I was like, I think Vrabel's coaching hires were terrible. I think, to your point, I think he got lucky with Arthur Smith, but it wasn't so much luck. It's that Matt LaFleur tried to bring Arthur Smith to Green Bay to be the offensive coordinator, and when he did that, when he tried to do it, Vrabel blocked it by making Arthur his OC, and I think it's more on brand to think that Vrabel decided to make Arthur the OC because he was going to, no, you can't have him. And that's why he made him the OC. That if LaFleur didn't want to take Arthur, he wouldn't have promoted Arthur. And so, yeah, the other coaching hires, like Hodeling was terrible, and Tim Kelly, I mean, he did some good things, but I didn't want that Earhart-Perkins offense. I wanted a guru. And, yes, the coaching staff. And the coaching staff, for me, with Vrabel was more so about his inexperience than it was about him being a bad judge of coaching talent because he just didn't know enough people around the league. All came from the Texans or Ohio State, the two places he had been. Whereas Brian Callahan has been, 6 different spots or whatever, and Bill Callahan has coached for every team in the league. So it's like between the two of them, they know everybody. So that, I think, is a big difference. I don't know how good this coaching staff's going to be outside of Bill, which I know Bill's a good coach. But I don't think that bothered Amy because, again, they went to Diana on Thanksgiving and told Diana Vrabel was going to be the coach. At that point, they knew Jason Hodeling was a bad coach. At that point, they knew Andre Dillard was terrible. At that point, they knew Aaron Brewer was 270 pounds. And they still said, he's our guy. One texter says, I think people being so upset about Vrabel is a response to the media absolutely slamming the Titans for firing him and acting like it was a horrible move. Sure, he was a fine in-game coach, but he only hired his buddies and former colleagues who often sucked at coaching. I don't disagree with that. I think the other thing, too, and I use the Craig Aukerman thing as an example. Chad Withrow gets mad at fans when the fans immediately do a 180 on somebody because the Titans fire him, right? The In J-Rob We Trust crew has turned around to, let Rand cook and everything was John Robinson's fault. And Vrabel was the greatest, and then it's, Vrabel sucks, he's the worst, you guys need to stop telling us all of these things. And I understand the sentiment, right? I think it is disingenuous, maybe even to yourself, if you're a Kentucky basketball fan and the day Mark Pope got hired, you had a meltdown, and 2 days later you stood in line for 2 hours to get into Rupp Arena for his press conference because you think this Mark Pope is the greatest coach since John Paul. You think he's the greatest Pope since John Paul III or whatever. It's like, that is ridiculous. I don't understand how you can be so mad on Thursday and be so happy on Sunday, and the guy hadn't even had a press conference yet. I mean, that's embarrassing. So I do understand that, but I do think that, there were a lot of Titan fans that when I talk about the Titans right now sticking their necks out for T'Vondre Sweat. They got up there at the press conference, fold their arms, say, oh, no, we know. And if Sweat doesn't work out, they're going to go nuts. And I think there are a lot of Titans fans that with the assistant coaches looked at Vrabel, who crossed his arms and basically said, oh, no, we're going to trust me on this. I remember when he and I got into it about Craig Aukerman. And I kind of laughed because Paul got on my ass afterwards, in the media room about, oh, you should have answered better about Aukerman. You should have. I mean, I didn't back down. I pushed back on Vrabel, and he got into his net punting and everything else. And there were a lot of people that were like, oh, Vrabel showed you. And I said, we'll see. We'll see. You guys now are, yeah, Vrabel, you show him. First game of the year, they get a punt blocked by the Saints. They lose by 3. Or I think they lost by 1. Whatever. You got a punt blocked. It cost you the game. Then the fans were like, hey, wait a minute. You stuck your neck out for that Craig Aukerman, and those special teams do kind of suck. Kyle Phillips can't even field a punt, and you're sticking him back there in London, and it just cost us the game. And you just got the punter's leg amputated. Like, maybe you do stink. And I think there was some of that really got the fans all worked up was, when Vrabel defended Aukerman, they were on his side. But then, you can't unring that bell. It's like, maybe the special teams coach does suck. And then all of a sudden you've been made aware to it. It's like, he does suck. And so I think there's something to that. Ben says, why does it seem like they are opening the checkbook a lot more now than ever? That's the issue I have with the criticism of Vrabel. It appears there's more money available and happily available to spend when Vrabel was here, and that correlates with winning. I mean, I think they spent a lot of money on Vrabel, on the players over the years. You have to remember, again, Will Levis's total 4-year contract is $9 million. Tannehill made $30 million last year, 27. So it's like, oh, okay, we don't have to pay Tannehill 27 anymore, so now let's go give that money to Calvin Ridley. But I would agree. I do think that they spent a lot more. Last year, they didn't spend any money on the team last year. And they blamed the cap, and some of you guys believe that. And that's why you ended up with Andre Dillard. So I will say, in defense of Vrabel, let's see if they had actually let him spend money last year, if he could have done better. Not that I would have kept him. I'm just saying let's have seen that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Ian, you know that guy I told you that gets triggered every time we talk about Vrabel?
Mm-hmm.
11 text messages since I last clicked his text.
Jeez.
Here you go. Should I read them all?
If they're safe.
Okay, so the first text from this guy came in at 3:07. Oh,
this
hold
is
on.
Unnamed texter in the text
unnamed
line?
texter. Okay. I know his first 3 digits of his phone number because he texted at 3:02, but that one I guess I'd already clicked. After that, 3:07, 3:14, 3:16, 3:16, 3:28, 3:31, 3:34, 3:35, 3:40, 3:41. The next segment I have is on Aaron Rodgers, or we can read all of this Vrabel trigger guys' texts. Which one do you want to do? Choose your own adventure in the text line. Triggered guy or Aaron Rodgers? You pick. And I do have a Titans thought on this Aaron Rodgers thing, but you pick which one you want. You'll get it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Why'd you keep Craig Ackerman on the staff with the special teams issues this season?
Well, I think what special teams, what are you talking about?
Craig Ackerman was hearing about his special teams. He's the coordinator.
But when you look at it, third in the National Football League in net punting with the number of players that were on our punt team and the number of gunners we went through is pretty good.
Ryan Stonehouse in the punt for Tennessee, and it's blocked. Oh boy, you get chills every time there's a block punt in the Superdome.
Ryan Stonehouse, Devin Duvernay. Makes a move, he's free. Devin Duvernay's got the punter to beat. Devin Duvernay out of bounds at the Tennessee 16.
Stonehouse punting for the 5th time today. And that one's blocked! The Colts got it! Scooped up by Stewart! Touchdown! Another block! It's loose! Scooped up by the Colts again!
But I can't put that on Craig Ackerman when I see the amount of time that we spend catching punts. Like, we go through more jugs machines than anybody. Okay, I get it. We gotta make sure we take care of the ball.
Fair catch called. It's muffed! It is muffed, and the Ravens recover. Oh my goodness, with 1 second to go.
Garrett's going to play it from the 20. Crosses the 30 out to the 35. Football's loose. Jacksonville has it.
But I can't say that that's Craig Ackerman when I'm evaluating everything that we're doing.
An oldie but a goodie. Boy, that was woof. That was something. I remember I made that up the night after the Colts game, and I was like, oh man, we're gonna play the crap out of this cut. And then he fired Ackerman, and it was like, darn. But we still played it anyways. So I asked the text line, I said, okay, you can have the guy who apparently his name is Steve, by the way. You can have the guy who has gone crazy about Vrabel in the text line, or I can tell you about Aaron Rodgers going off the reservation and skipping minicamp because he doesn't give a rat's ass about football anymore. And you guys overwhelmingly, and I mean like 35-2, you guys picked, I didn't keep track. Throwing that off, you guys picked Vrabel. So here you go. Here are Steve's text messages this hour, 11 in total. 307, quote, national media are idiots. That is one of the most uneducated takes I've ever heard. Vrabel has the worst coordinators in the NFL and horrible players that were his picks. Referring to Kirk Morrison saying Vrabel overachieved as the Titans coach, saying that that's the most uneducated take he's ever heard. 314, he sucked. That's why he got fired. 316, all of Vrabel's selections except Arthur Smith and Dean Pease, players and coaches, were awful, all caps. And Vrabel thinks he can win with a team of 53 Vince Papales because he knows, because he played the game. Me and Caroline were actually talking about this weekend. The fact that Vrabel resorted to the I played the game stuff is so weak. Anywho, come on, man, he continues. How can you be so blind on this? Vrabel's schemes haven't won championships since all stadiums were covered to protect from pterodactyl attacks. I'm guessing
Pterodactyl, yeah.
Pterodactyl. Pterodactyl spelled with a P?
Yeah.
Learn something new every day. Joe Rexrode freaked out yesterday because I said that Magic Johnson had AIDS. And he texted me and was like, you're an idiot! Magic Johnson doesn't have AIDS! I'm like, I'm pretty sure Magic Johnson has AIDS. I'm pretty sure that he does. And so who knows? Maybe he doesn't. You learn something new every day. You don't think losing against the Texans and the throwbacks on homecoming day didn't piss Amy off? By the way, I did forget about that. That absolutely pissed Amy off. Which, by the way, I predicted the loss as soon as the game was announced. Unless you're Aaron Rodgers, who does own the Bears, trolling never works in the NFL. Ryan Tannehill doesn't have a job because the league is so erroneously enamored of Vrabel that they think Tannehill was really declining because it couldn't be Vrabel's fault. He wasn't. Vrabel was running that team into the ground with Downing at the helm. And Mad Dog Russo is the most ignorant of this market of all the national talking heads. We're all salty about Vrabel because we had the talent to win a Super Bowl and we wasted it with his stubborn, arrogant, ancient BS. History will show Vrabel is not, in all caps, a good coach. Mark my words. I go far less crazy over this topic than you go about right tackle. Also, you fire Bowen after the first year where he brought us the third worst defense in the history of the NFL. Vrabel had played for just about every coach in the league, Jared. Stop making excuses for him. He sucks. Those are all of Steve's texts this hour in reference to Mike Vrabel.
Not all bad points.
I mean, he does make a valid case. Like, he does. I mean, there's a lot. There are things he included in there that I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot about when they lost to the JV Texans and those Oiler throwbacks. I'm like, there is something to that. That there may be a little something. Oh, Indy Ben! Indy Ben texts in and says, in response to Steve, I'm sorry, but I'll choose to trust the entire rest of the league and what they think over one franchise and the Titans and their fan base. So there's validity to the fact that the rest of the league says the Titans lost a good head coach because it's true. He got them to win games that team had no business winning over his span as head coach. Yes and no. They won games they had no business winning, like the 2019 game at home against the Chiefs. And then they lost to Zach Wilson and Corey Davis going off.
Yeah, the Vrabel special. We've talked about this.
Yeah. I mean, for every good thing Vrabel did like that, there was a bad thing that Vrabel did. Like when they went to Carolina and they lost, I think Kyle Allen quarterbacked that game, and they lost to Carolina and then turned around the next week and beat the Chiefs. Like that is, woof. I mean, it's, one texter says Magic has HIV, not AIDS. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I thought those were the same thing. Ian?
I do know he did have has HIV.
Well, everybody knows that.
And so I think he has been on some hardcore medicine, from what I understand or had been reading, and it really helped and maybe helped not progress into AIDS.
I guess. I don't know. Joe was going nuts last night texting me being like, are you that stupid? You said Magic Johnson had AIDS? And I screenshotted it and I sent it to Caroline and I was like, what am I missing here? And Caroline was like, I knew that Magic had AIDS before I knew Magic played basketball. Like, what? And
I guess HIV can turn into, progress into AIDS, even worse.
Okay. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Okay, I know everybody loves Will Levis. I know everybody thinks he's the next coming. I know. But I did see Jordan Reed at ESPN put together the list of quarterbacks in next year's class. And when I went through it, and again, I have not studied this quarterbacks class for the 2025 draft. I haven't studied it. But when I went through it, I mean, I took a red pen to this list, and it does worry me about what if Levis doesn't work out. I do want to go over these quarterbacks. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. So this morning, I was perusing ESPN.com, as I do every morning, and I saw Jordan Reed, who's one of the draft guys, along with Mel and Matt Miller and Field Yates. Jordan Reed, who I still have not completely gotten over, having Malik Willis mocked at number 2 overall to the Detroit Lions the year they took Aiden Hutchinson. I still have never kind of forgotten that. Every time I talk about Jordan Reed, I'm always like, hey, Jordan Reed, who did have Malik Willis going number 2 overall in a mock draft. But that doesn't mean I discount what he says. Guy works hard. And they seem to think that he is a knowledgeable guru, so we'll give it to him. Jordan Reed had a story at ESPN kind of ranking the quarterbacks of the 2025 class and what they can be and what they can't be and so on and so forth. So let's pretend it doesn't work out with Will Levis. Like, let's just say that this year we all think that there's a chance Levis could be the guy. They go out there and Levis looks like Rex Grossman. And that we know by mid-year that it's like, this ain't going to be it. And the Titans have a high pick because if Levis stinks, they'll be bad. And if they're bad, they'll have a high pick. So now we're talking quarterbacks. Here's the list Jordan Reed has. He starts at the top with what I think right now is the consensus number 1 quarterback.
Number 1.
Jordan Beck out of Georgia. Now, I am not a Jordan Beck fan. I think Jordan Beck's kind of like J.J. McCarthy. He's got a great team around him, and so he wins games. But he's got Jordan Beck numbers. But I don't think that stuff's going to work. Like when you're trying to lead a team, I think Shedeur is out in, planet Zeronium, and I am not interested in that. And I do think he's okay. Like I think he's solid, but he's not very big. And so I am out on Shedeur. No, thank you.
Number 3.
Quinn Ewers, who I actually think is pretty good.
Number 4.
Jackson Dart, no. I don't think he's a passing quarterback. I think Jackson Dart is a college quarterback. I think he's one of these guys that you can put one of these Fakakta college offenses in there, and he looks over to the side, and okay, lies, and okay, Blue 80 Hut, no thank you.
Number 5.
Cam Ward at Miami, who transferred from Washington State. Cam Ward was supposed to be the top transfer quarterback on the market. He then declared for the NFL draft. He then announced he was going to Miami. I'm not sure I totally understand that. I can't really tell you much because I haven't watched Washington State play, but all that kind of drama, it tells me the NFL didn't think very highly of Cam Ward, so I'm probably out on him.
Number 6.
Jalen Milroe, out. He is not a pro quarterback.
Number 7.
Riley Leonard, out. I don't think he's a pro quarterback either. Remember, he came into the year at Duke. They thought Riley Leonard was going to be a first-round draft choice. Now, he did get hurt. He hurt the ankle a couple of times. He's transferred to Notre Dame, but no thank you on Riley Leonard. I think he's an okay college quarterback, which means that outside of Quinn Ewers, I do not like Jordan Beck, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, or Riley Leonard. I could be talked into Cam Ward, who I don't know much about, and Jordan Beck. But I am out on Sanders, out on Dart, out on Milroe, out on Leonard. Now, I have not studied this quarterback class. That's a big asterisk to put in there to say, hold on, I haven't done the homework and the research and all that kind of stuff. But I do not like a lot of those potential quarterbacks that would be coming out, which means where we sit today, one of 3 things are possible if Levis doesn't prove to us this year that he is the franchise quarterback. Number 1 is Levis could get a 3rd year because the Titans could be sitting there with the 3rd pick, and you could be looking and saying, like, yeah, Shedeur Sanders is okay, but Deion's crazy, and, Shedeur is inheriting the craziness from Deion. And, again, Shedeur won 4 games last year. And I know that team sucked, but, like, and so when I felt like Deion embraced that and Shedeur embraced that, I'm like, I can't do that. So if they're sitting there, there could be a guy that's like the next year's version of Marvin Harrison Jr., and you're like, well, he's the best player in this draft, but he's not a quarterback. Somebody's going to take Carson Beck 1, and we don't want to take Shador, and we don't want to take Jackson Dart. So let's go ahead and take this really, really good player who is this year's version of Marvin Harrison. The second thing that could happen is somebody could have a Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow-like season where right now they're ranked as a 5th-round pick, but they win the Heisman and the national championship, and we're like, nope, give me that guy. Give me Tyler Schreck as the quarterback because he won the Heisman this year and we don't know anything about him. And then the fourth thing is win with a solid veteran quarterback and a good cast around him, and we pay the veteran quarterback $20 million or $10 million and not a boatload of money. So I'm not in love, just first glance. Not that I'm doing, an in-depth dive. And I was not in love with Anthony Richardson before I started studying him before the 23 draft. And after that, I was like, I would take that guy number 1 overall. So maybe one of these guys I'll actually love. I can't see myself loving Jalen Milroe as an NFL quarterback, but maybe. But I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan on any of these guys. Outside of Ewers. I do like Ewers. I think Ewers is pretty good. And I do remember when they played the game 2 years ago at Texas against Alabama, and Ewers had Xavier Worthy. This was before he got A.D. Mitchell, when A.D. Mitchell was still at Georgia. And he was just bombing the ball against Kool-Aid McKinstry, and I think Terrion Arnold was out there. And he was just bombing the ball down the field to Xavier Worthy, and Alabama couldn't stop it. And the only reason Alabama won that game was because Ewers got hurt. And then the next year, Ewers goes to Tuscaloosa, and granted, with a great team, Ewers goes to Tuscaloosa and beats daylights out of Alabama. That means something to me. So Ewers, you can work me on. The other guys, 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones on this. 615-737-1025. Plus, I'm sure people don't love the Shador thing. I mean, there is one thought that I have on Shador that I do want to get to, because I am 100% out on Shador Sanders. So we'll hit that next and your phone. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Let me tell you what I'm not out on. Twice daily. I love Twice Daily. Twice Daily has your cravings, and you can save on every single visit. Stop in and get rewarded, because all you need to do is join the Twice Daily Rewards program to unlock special discounts, savings, enter their sweepstakes, and so much more. Try the new wraps, the Italian, the ham and cheddar, the turkey and Swiss, the Nashville hot chicken, and they are made to order. You can order on the app. You can order at the kiosk. They are absolutely fabulous. They are made to order with your favorite toppings, and when you download the Twice Daily app, you can order ahead. Or at Twice Daily, it's snack time all the time, and they've got favorites like chicken fingers, tater rounds, new pretzels, and more. Twice Daily. What are you craving?
Where do you predict Shador and Travis going in the draft?
Top 4.
That's pretty beautiful.
Anywhere from 1 through 4. One of them is going to be 1. The latter one would not go behind 4. Now, all this is subjective because I know where I want them to go. So there's certain cities that ain't going to happen.
Okay, you on point.
It's going to be it's going to be an Eli.
There you go. That was Dion on some podcast saying, there's just certain places that Shador is not going to go to. I'll pull an Eli Manning. Let me tell you, this is why I'm 100% out on Shador Sanders. If it doesn't work out with Will Levis and you're picking third and Shador is the top quarterback on the board, I am not interested because I think he is too immature and it absolutely comes from Dion. And if you draft Shador, you're drafting Dion. So while I love Deion Sanders and Deion Mania and all the crazy stuff Deion does and the theatrics and everything else, I enjoy it because I like watching it on my television. Not because I want it in my locker room or on my team. And Shador, in my opinion, has shown time and time again that he's just a kid and he's following Deion's lead. Well, if I'm drafting you third overall, you got to run the franchise, not Deion. And so when I see the entitlement that Shador operates with, I think it 100% comes from Deion, and it's Deion embraces it. Deion, brings Shador with him, walks into the first team meeting and goes, "My son will be the quarterback." Okay? Not my son has to earn it like everybody else. My son's the quarterback. And the thing about Deion, and again, I like Deion. I like watching Deion. I've never cared about Colorado football until the first month of this year. And then everybody forgot about Colorado football. But my thing about Deion is a total narcissist. It is not the University of Colorado. It is the University of Deion. And I don't want that as my starting quarterback. And I think that's exactly what Shador's going to be. I think if you draft Shador, you're drafting Deion. And I don't want it. So I'm making a prediction right now. I think Shador is going to be the Raiders' next quarterback. They'll be picking 4 or 5 or 6, and the Raiders will draft Shador Sanders. Just a gut feeling. He feels like a Raider. Just a gut feeling. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Weston is up next here on our program. Thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead, Weston.
Hey, Jared. So if Levis doesn't pan out this year, and we do have, say, somewhere in the top 5, top 6 draft picks, and we got quarterbacks sitting there, I think we should maybe look at possibly getting another edge rusher or possibly receiver and taking a flyer on a guy later in the rounds and have him sit behind Levis for the third year if we go that route. Because you look at development for Levis' sake, he should have sat this year. He didn't. And I think if we did that and got a guy that's going to be a solid backup later down the road, I think that would be the best way to go. I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah, I appreciate your call. I think it's probably a little early for us to be targeting positions for next year's draft. I mean, I do think at some point they're going to have to get a young receiver, and I do think at some point they're going to have to get a young edge rusher that's better than Arden Key. But I do think it's probably a little early for all of that. One texter says, Shador Sanders is Lonzo Ball 2.0. Remember the big baller brand. Yeah, but see, here's the thing. LeVar Ball had no credibility. He was just a clown. Deion is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And so it's one thing for LeVar Ball. LeVar Ball was just a troll. And he knew how to troll, and then eventually he got old. Deion knows how to troll, but to troll at the level of, oh, no, I'm serious. And that carries more weight than LeVar Ball, who everybody can say, yeah, we're going to draft Lonzo, and then we'll just turn around and not worry about LeVar. Because I don't even hear about LeVar anymore, and 2 of his sons are in the NBA. Chuck says Deion would say no to Tennessee. Maybe. I don't think that I think Deion's full of it when he says, oh, no, with Shador, we're going to pull an Eli if we don't like these teams that are going to want to take him, and we're going to I don't think he's – I think that's an empty threat. Texter said, nobody ever said don't draft Bronny James because he's going to be like his dad. He, talking about Shedeur, deserves a shot like any other top quarterback because dad is not going to be on the field. The thing about Shedeur, though, is that we've seen how he acts in the limelight, right? Like when he got into it with the Colorado State guys and everything else, we've seen Shedeur in the public with the, Lamborghinis and all the whatnot. I don't know anything about Bronny other than Bronny averaged like 7 points a game this year and is declaring for the draft. That's all I know about Bronny. One texter says, I can see Jerry Jones giving up a bunch of picks for Shedeur Sanders and firing Mike McCarthy for Deion. I do not think, because this isn't the first time I've heard this, that is, could the Dallas Cowboys hire Deion Sanders? And I think the answer to that question is absolutely 100% no. First of all, I don't think Deion Sanders is ever going to coach in the NFL. Secondly, Deion won 4 freaking games last year, guys. 4 games. He won the first 3, and then we didn't hear from Deion anymore after Oregon beat him by 50. But here's why Deion will absolutely, positively not be the Cowboys' next coach. And this is why I think Vrabel might be a potential Cowboy coach. Deion Sanders. Again, I don't call a lot of people narcissists. Ian, we've been doing this show together for almost 10 years. Have I ever called somebody, your recollection, like a total narcissist?
Nothing particular comes to mind.
I can't think of that. Like, I don't think Vrabel's a narcissist. I think Deion is 100% a narcissist. Like, I think he is proof in the pudding. It's all about him. He's never wrong. Everybody who says anything about him that's wrong, they're a hater. It's just classic narcissism. Well, anywhere Deion Sanders goes, I don't care if it's a TV network. I don't care if it's as a player. I don't care if it's a football team, a baseball team. Deion is the star. At Jackson State, Deion was the star. At Colorado, Deion was the star, is the star. You think Jerry Jones is going to bring Deion in to take up all the attention? That's not Jerry's MO. Jerry's MO is hiring some bozo to sit on the sidelines that gives Jerry the ultimate authority and just, bows down to Jerry all the time. That's why Mike McCarthy's the perfect fit. Because Mike McCarthy sits there with his big play sheet, takes the blame for all the mistakes, but then never gets any credit because he lets Jerry take it. That's why Jason Garrett kept that job for so long. Just clap on that sideline. Clap, clap, clap. Bill Parcells and Jerry didn't last very long. Because if you're going to work with Bill Parcells, you're going to do things Bill Parcells' way. I think Vrabel and Jerry could get along because Vrabel doesn't like to be the center of attention. And so Vrabel's like, yeah, I'll go do the football stuff over here, but Jerry, you get all the attention. And I think that could work. But I do not believe that Jerry Jones could hire a personality the size of Deion Sanders where Deion's going to get all the attention. I just don't think Jerry Jones could do that. One texter said, would your opinion change if Colorado makes the playoffs? Is this the opinion about drafting Shedeur Sanders, or is this the opinion about Deion? And then I also, not that I've looked at a top 25 poll, is Colorado supposed to be one of the top 14 teams? Or is it 12 teams this year? Or is it I can't even tell you how many teams we got in the playoff. I think it's 14, right, Ian?
I think so.
They were going to go with 12, and then Greg Sankey wanted 2 more, so they got.
I think it's 12.
No, I think they went to 14. I can't even keep up with it anymore. I think making the playoffs in college this year, everybody's going to be excited when they make the playoffs. And then in about 2 years, it'll be like the NFL where it's like, congratulations to the Steelers last year who made the playoffs, but 615-737-1025. Trevor joins us next. No Tavondre Sweat once again. What does Trevor make of it? We'll do that next here on the program. Let me tell you about Window Nation. Window Nation is a company I trust. I had Window Nation to my home for the free in-home consultation. And they gave me the whole pitch about the great windows they have, the energy-efficient windows, the good, better, best that they have there. Great windows. And then I said, all right, which windows do we need to replace? And Window Nation came back to me and said, actually, we don't need to replace any windows. I said, are you serious? We don't need to replace any. They said, yeah. And I thought to myself, that's how I know this is a real trustworthy company. This is a company that I believe in. The other companies that replace windows, I can't tell you anything about them. I can tell you that Window Nation is a place you can trust. Get bonus days to save during their semi-annual sale right now through June 30th. Get 50% off all windows along with no interest for 5 years, plus a bonus 10% savings when you schedule an estimate. Again, 50% off all windows, no interest for 5 years, bonus 10% savings when you schedule that estimate today. And that's during Window Nation's semi-annual sale. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com. Again, offer ends June 30th, so schedule that in-home estimate right now. 866-90NATION, windownation.com. Today was the final day of OTAs for the Titans for the offseason. Now they're done. Now the next time the Titans will hit the field, it will be training camp. And again today, there was no Tavondre Sweat. Ian, if you could, Brian Callahan was asked today if he was concerned about the fact that Tavondre Sweat made the first OTA practice that none of us saw, by the way, and has been on the shelf since then. Here's what Brian Callahan had to say today.
Obviously not available again today, but how is he conditioning wise, and is that any kind of concern as you take your break and get ready to come back for camp?
I'm not concerned, no. It's just one of those things that's sort of lingered on him a bit. Again, don't anticipate it being a long-term issue for us, but didn't have any sense to rush him out here, not feeling perfect. And so he'll get his work over the summer. He's got a plan in place, and I'm confident that he'll execute it. So biggest thing for him is working still and getting in shape, ready to roll. He's obviously working, not in front of everybody, but he's here working. He's not getting the full field work, but he's here and he's getting his work in. So anticipate him being ready to roll, and we'll see what he's got in training camp.
Trevor Maddich now joins us, presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook and Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. So, Trev, let's start with Sweat. No open practices. Was T'Vondre Sweat available for the Titans? Brian Callahan says he's not concerned. Are you?
I am concerned because as a rookie, he needs to be out there with his teammates learning the schemes. People think that defensive tackle is a simple position to play. Just here's your gap, go bust through the gap and destroy anything with the football. It's not that way. It's actually really complicated with a lot of adjustments and decisions to make. And just one of those is that if the offense shifts, the tight end goes to the other side, the running back switch sides, there's motion across the formation. How does your assignment change? And those things happen at the last second. And if you don't know what your new assignment is immediately, you'll be in the wrong gap, and a running back could go blasting through unopposed, right, through an empty hole. So it's important to be there to learn the scheme. We start there. But then you add to it the fact that his weight is a huge concern. And instead of having a head start of getting that weight down towards what they want his playing weight to be, he is not able to do those things physically to get himself up to speed there. So he's behind when it comes to that. He's also losing the opportunity to develop core strength, because a lot of the drills that you and I watch them perform in OTAs, Jared, a lot of those drills build your core strength. That's from your thighs up to your midsection. And while you're performing football skills, you're also developing the strength you need to perform those football skills, which you really can't mimic in the weight room. You just can't. The weight room gets you ready to play football. Playing football gets you ready to play football. And I know it wasn't full pads and everything else, but it still matters, especially with the guy in the condition of sweats. And now, he's got to go into training camp and start weeks behind all of his teammates in all of those things. The problem that you have is that the Titans don't really have a good choice. They have to choose between two bad options. One is to rush him out there to get the work on the field, even if he's not ready physically, and risk a setback, and the other is, to not have him out there. Those are two bad choices, but it's like, okay, what do you want to do? Hit yourself in the head with a hammer, or, cut off your head with a chainsaw? Which do you prefer? Well, if those are my choices, give me the hammer, right? And that is what the Titans are faced with T'Vondre Sweat. There is nothing good and everything bad about him missing all this time. But the only thing worse than him missing this time would be to go out there and try to perform too early and end up with a setback and make him miss even more time.
Trevor, I kind of feel like, I said this earlier today, I beg of T'Vondre Sweat, do not leave Nashville over the next 6 weeks. I know everybody else is going to be, I know everybody else is going to be, going off to the beach, and they're going to be spending time in Europe and Italy and whatnot. And I beg T'Vondre Sweat, stay here, show up Monday through Friday in the weight room with the strength staff. Do not leave Nashville. I don't know if he'll do it or not, but it would mean a lot to me if he does stay here over the 6-week break that the players have to get away. What do you make of that?
Well, it should. That's a great point, Jared. It should mean a lot to T'Vondre to stay here. He could say that he'll hire a personal trainer, he'll do all the same things somewhere else on a beach or at home or whatever. That doesn't matter. in his own selfish interest, he needs to be here so that the strength staff and the coaches and the trainers are watching everything that he does. They are charting and logging, and in some cases videoing the things that he's doing, so that if something does go wrong, if he does fail to pass the conditioning test, if he does re-injure whatever it is that's bothering him now, or comes up with a new injury, there cannot be speculation by the team that he either did something he shouldn't have done or failed to do something he should have when he was away from the complex during this period of weeks. If he's there working with them, then if there's some sort of a setback, if there's any kind of problem, then at least he'll be able to say, you guys saw everything that I did, and you saw the effort that I put in, right? And so that's critical. That's what I would do. As a matter of fact, that's what I did do. I always stayed and stuck around when I didn't have to, in part because I wanted to show appreciation to the team who brought me in and trusted me with a roster spot, but also because if anything went wrong, I wanted to make sure that they knew that I was doing everything right because their eyes were on me. And so your sense of that, Jared, is exactly right. And it should fit into T'Vondre Sweat's self-interest if he were, I don't know if he is, but if he were completely selfish and only cared about himself, he should stay here for that very reason. Good point, man.
Trevor Maddich is with us. Do you think, there were the red flags with Sweat coming into this, and they had to sit around and talk about, okay, do we believe that the DWI was really just a one-time mistake? Do we think the maturity concerns at Texas are blown out of proportion? Do we think he can manage his weight? They had to have all those discussions before they drafted him 38. If a genie was sitting with them and saying, just so you know, he's not going to be able to practice at all during OTAs and minicamp, do you think that the Titans would have still taken him 38th, or do you think they would have said that and said, no, that's too big of a risk. We can't do it?
Well, let me ask you this, Jared. Have they released information that they knew there was something wrong around draft time, or is this something that popped up after he was drafted? I mean, has any information been released relative to that by the Titans?
Well, he performed in rookie minicamp and the one day that they had it, and then he practiced the first OTA. Supposedly, it was closed. He practiced the first OTA, but then after that, he's had a minor injury that Brian Callahan has said last week thought that he'd be able to perform this week, and then this week said, we don't want to rush him unless he feels perfect. And so I think that this happened after they drafted him.
Yeah, see, under those circumstances, I bet it would have given them pause. See, I'm sort of in the minority, Jared, in that I don't think taking him when they did high in the second round was bad, based on what we knew at the time, certainly. Because he wasn't – at Texas, he played a lot of snaps. He was a three-down defensive lineman. I mean, he played first down, stuff the run, second down, stuff the run, third down, drove the center and the guard back into the face of the quarterback to disrupt his throw. And then he'd come off the field. And he did that game after game after game. A lot of guys that are that big, you watch them and you see them fatigue over the course of not just the four quarters of the game, but they fatigue over a series, and you see it happening. You didn't really notice that as much with T'Vondre Sweat any more than any other tackle that didn't weigh 360, 70 pounds, whatever he weighed any given week at the University of Texas. So, I am not nearly as down on him being taken when the Titans did. But this is a real problem because in order to take him and then say, okay, he's overweight, we do want him to get down. This is not a 13, 14 game season, even a 15 game season in college. If you go on to the national championship game, you're talking about 17 regular season games and then playoffs, and it exacerbates problems towards the end of the season. And I think that the Titans may have thought, we're going to hold off on drafting this guy because right now the choice is sort of contingent on him being able to step into our facility with our strength staff and get into the football shape we want him to be in. And right now, they can't do that with him. He's Nicholas Petit-Frere right now. Petit-Frere needs to get on the field so that he can show that he can play right tackle. And he can't get on the field to show that he can do it because of injury. And I think right now that there's concerns with Tavondre Sweat not being out there.
So you brought up Nicholas Petit-Frere. I'm glad you did because Trevor Maddich is with us. How can Bill Callahan fix somebody the way that he's going to need to fix Petit-Frere if Petit-Frere can't get on the football field?
He can't. He can't. He can't make Petit-Frere better than his potential, but he can elevate Petit-Frere's performance closer to that theoretical ceiling, that potential, only if he's on the field. But it's not just a matter of teaching him technique. That technique is critical because you've got to not just execute it, but you have to execute it while being opposed by a defensive player in a dynamic activity. It's really a counterintuitive thing to do. Everything an offensive lineman does is not natural. So you just got to practice it a lot. But in order to execute the techniques that Bill Callahan teaches, you have to develop that core strength. You and I talked before about one of the drills that they do is with a big giant sandbag. It weighs about 50 pounds if it's dry, but if it's left out in the rain, it's going to weigh a lot more than that. And you take that sandbag and you kind of get into a pass blocking position where you bend down a little bit with your knees, and that forces you to keep your back relatively straight, because if you lean too far forward, the sandbag will pull you forward. But if you lean too far back, then the guy pushing on you or the bungee cord that's pulling on you from behind is going to pull you over backwards. That sandbag forces you to be in the right posture with your hips and your back, and then you punch with it. So what that does is it develops tremendous strength in your thighs, your hips, your abs, your low back, and your shoulder girdle while you're working on the technique. You need that strength in order to do it right. Petit-Frere can watch it on tape forever. He can walk through it against air forever. But if he's not out there with the sandbag, going through the misery of developing that strength and that posture, then he's not going to be able to execute it on the football field. And so Coach Bill Callahan, as great as he is, he can't make Petit-Frere better than Petit-Frere can possibly be. But right now, Petit-Frere is nowhere near, not even remotely close to as good as he can possibly be, because from the very beginning, he doesn't even have the strength to go out and do it right now.
Trevor Maddich is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics and ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Coming up next. Boy, Trev, you made a lot of people mad last week, which, of course, we love on this program. But there may be an explanation. I want your thoughts on it. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
In this one snapshot, Traylon Burks, I would cut him today if I was the coach because of the way he practiced. I mean, one drill that they did was a short in route where there was a big old blocking dummy, and they had to run up about 5 yards and then make a little move and then cut straight across the field to the inside, and the quarterback could throw him the ball there about 5 yards downfield. Well, the other veteran receivers, the young rookies trying to make the team, they saw the play through. They came off the ball hard. They broke hard to the left or to the right, depending on the direction they were going. They would catch the ball, look the ball in to secure it as if they were about to get hit, and then make a move and turn upfield before they would lose their mental focus. Whereas Traylon Burks would come off the ball hard, make a good cut to the left, and then when the ball approached, he'd just pull up. He'd catch it, lackadaisically start to pull it in to secure it, turn and jog up the field a few steps. And he just did that over and over again. Traylon Burks mentally wasn't finishing plays. He was stopping as soon as he possibly could and then slowed down and just jogged to the rest of the way. I am disgusted at how he practiced as a receiver today.
Trevor Maddich is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics and by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Boy, Trevor, a lot of people were worked up about that take. Your opinion from minicamp last week, and it's gotten all the way back to today's media availability. This is Tyke Tolbert, the Titans wide receivers coach, asked about Traylon Burks' effort. Here's what he said.
Attitudes, great. Effort's been good. One of the things that somebody said something about his effort in practice the other day, the one thing I would mention that a lot of those guys come straight from special teams and they're running like 100 yards up and down the field. And when they get to my period, my individual period, we have only 8 minutes. So what I tell them to do is they can tone it down a little bit, go through the route technique part of it, not so much speed, because after 8 minutes, we go back full speed with the routes on there with the quarterbacks. So some of that, I give them a little leeway because especially like on the kickoff team or a punt team as a gunner, he's taking more reps, probably twice as many reps as rookies are. So I'm trying to give him a little bit of a break when it gets to my particular area. As far as running full speed technique, I won't waver on that. But as far as going full speed in my drills, I don't have them do that on some days when they're doing a lot of running on special teams.
So some of that was seen was, in fact, based off, hey, look, man, tone it down.
Yeah, I tell them all. They say, what's the speed? I say, I will go half speed this time. I say, what's the speed? I say, 3/4. Now, sometimes we go full speed, but they always ask, what's the speed? And I tell them when they come from over there, I see they're running gunners and I'm seeing they're running kickoff coverage and some guys getting twice as many reps as some other guys. So just to give them like a little break when they get to my particular drill, I tell them the technique won't suffer, but just tone it down a little bit because you just come back from running all those, I don't know how many yards they run, but it's a lot over there in special teams. And then we're getting ready to run full speed again with the routes on air with the quarterback. So just in my period, sometimes I tell them to tone it down, half speed, 3/4 speed, that kind of thing.
That audio from TD. Trevor, is that explanation suffice for you?
Absolutely not. First of all, I respect it when a coach has his players back. That's fine. What a coach says about a player in public and what he says to a player behind closed doors are often different, and the coach often has different reasons for that. And so I am in no way being critical of the coach. But I want you to sit back in your chair, Jared, and watch me knock this completely out of the park. Out into the bay, past the kayakers, okay, with a big splash. Because I wasn't talking about his physical effort on full speed reps. I talked to you, Jared, repeatedly about you don't always go full speed physically, but you must always be at full focus mentally, especially when you're not going full speed. If it's walk through, if it's jog through, if it's half speed or 3/4 speed, you must stay focused mentally 100% all the way through that less than 100% physical rep. And when we talked about that, I also mentioned Calvin Ridley and a rep that he ran, where it was about half, 3/4 speed, and it was a comeback route. He ran straight up the field and then came back to the ball against the air. No defender there. Well, he stretched out his stride so he could get the right distance with the right number of steps so that when he stopped at the top of the route and came back, everything was correct, even though he was not going full speed. Mentally, he was dialed in with urgency, even though physically he was not. This is what I was upset about in watching Traylon Burks practice that day. We talked about how that's one day, maybe something was up, but in that one day, in that snapshot, whether it was a full speed drill or whether it was a less than full speed physical drill, mentally, in my opinion, he would shut it down before the play was over, before the rep was over. And that trains you to shut it down before it's over in a game. When you talk to military folks, I didn't serve, but I try to learn as much as I can from them. And they will say that under pressure, your performance, your execution will devolve to the lowest level of your training. So your training, it better be at a high level because that's what you're going to do when everything hits the fan. It's the same way with football players, although football is not military. And so when Traylon Burks did that little drill we talked about where he ran up 5 yards and then took a cut to the inside around that little dummy, that was full speed for those first parts of it. But then mentally you can slow down without standing up. You can do it more slowly as you catch the ball and look to secure it. But he didn't do that. He just mentally let it all go. And I'll tell you this too. This is important because they drafted, the Titans did, a rookie this last year, Jaquan Jackson, right?
From Tulane. Yep.
He did. Yeah. And I watched him in that same practice be incredibly deliberate in watching with his eyes the ball hit his hands and then watch with his eyes as he tucked it away to secure it. Now, he did that more deliberately than he would in the game. He looked at it just a beat longer than he had to when the ball hit his hands, and then he watched it in to secure it a beat longer with his eyes than he had to secure it. You could see that he was mentally seeing it through, focusing on it, muscle memory, mental reps while he was doing it. He never, not a single time, was lackadaisical with seeing the ball hit his hands and watching that ball get in to be secured, whether it was full speed or half speed or walkthrough. Not a single time was he lackadaisical. Traylon Burks was lackadaisical regularly doing those same kinds of things. That's what I was talking about. So coach is saying, well, gee, we don't want him to run full speed. Well, that's right. You don't want him to run full speed. But mentally, you need to be full focus and urgency no matter what speed you're going. And that's what I was upset about in watching Traylon Burks practice.
Trevor, there was a lot of criticism of your opinion. Clearly they're asking the coach about it. It was D-Mace, everybody. Does that affect you when people say, oh, Trevor, that's over the top, your criticism? Does that at all make you want to retract it or anything like that? Now, look, I've been criticized plenty in my life, and I know you have too, so it doesn't really bother me when people have an opinion of my opinion, but I do wonder your thought of kind of the hubbub around how strong of an opinion you had about Burks last week.
Nope, I totally stand by it. The thing is, the coach, I'm sure the coach wasn't sitting around listening to you and I talk on the radio last week. Somebody told him. So sure. What was he told? And he said that, I told him to slow it down so he's not running so fast all the time. I wasn't talking about not running fast all the time. I was talking about the mental focus, seeing it through to the end of every rep. And a lot of people will hear some things that, they'll get it out of context, or somebody will tell them about it, or they'll hear one thing, but they won't really pay attention to the whole thing because when they hear something that triggers them, and that's what they focus on. So that's why I came back and I emphasized, and I appreciate the opportunity to do it. I wasn't talking about his physical effort. I was talking about his mental focus as was manifest by his physical actions going through these drills. And so that's what I was upset about. I absolutely stand by it. I'm happy to talk to the assistant coach, head coach, player, former player. I'm happy to talk about that because I have seen way too many players in college and in the NFL that practice in such a way that they guarantee they will not be able to get the most out of their ability because of the way that they're practicing.
Trevor Maddich, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters, and ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Trevor, excellent stuff this week. As always, we love you. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep, Trevor Maddich on the program. How about that from Trevor? The hammer. Say it, no, I'm not taking it back. I don't care what the coach says. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. I've got a thought on that I want to get to next. We will. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Mitch in Bellevue texts in and says, that a boy Trevor, don't back down. You are an expert for a reason. And I got to give Trevor some credit. Now, remember, what happened last week? He went to minicamp. He thought Traylon Burks was dogging it. He said it. It exploded. Why did it explode? Because Trevor has credibility. That's what Derek said. You know, when D-Mace went on his rant on the midday show about how it was irresponsible for Trevor to say that, and we don't need to cut in. I think everybody knows that D-Mace went crazy. And, you know, Nick Holst said, A+ effort from Traylon Burks. And then Tyke Tolbert, we played the cut. TD put the audio